In this video, I'm going to compare the differences between sharp books and soft books. By comparing these differences, you'll quickly see why sharp books are much more accurate at setting their odds compared to the retail books. There are a few major differences between the two. Number one is how they create their opening lines. Sharp books are also referred to as bookmakers because they originate their own lines. Sharp books consist of books like Pinnacle, Circa, and Bookmaker, and they will release their odds days or sometimes even weeks before an event actually happens. By releasing odds before any other sports book, they're setting the market with their opening lines. Soft books or retail books like FanDuel, DraftKings, and Caesars, they'll typically wait for a sharp book to post their opening line so they don't have to do the hard work of creating their own openers. This also reduces the risk of retail books because they aren't exposing themselves to a really volatile market. The second big thing is how they adjust their odds after the opening line. So sharp books adjust their odds based on action of professional bettors. These books will keep the money bet equal on both sides of the line. For example, if multiple large bets come on one side of the line, the sharp books will adjust their odds by decreasing the value on that side until it is no longer desirable to be bet by sharp bettors. By keeping the money equal on both sides of the line, a sharp book will often represent the most accurate odds in the eyes of a professional bettor because they aren't seeing value on either side. For the most part, soft books will simply follow the patterns of the sharp books. Each retail book has their own risk management team, so they decide when to move a line. It is real important for retail books to just stay close to the sharp books because they don't want to expose themselves at a bad price win. The third major difference is how these books set their lines. So sharp books increase the limit of how much money you can bet into their line as it gets closer to the start of the event. So let's just use the NFL for an example. Sharp books typically open their lines about a week before the game happens. Their typical opening limits are around $10,000 per bet. As the week progresses and more news and injury updates are released, the sharp books will increase their limits to the $50,000 range. You fast forward to game time and limits are typically between $100,000 and $200,000 for an NFL main line. The sharp books can offer such high limits because they slowly raise them and adjust their odds along the way. Sharp book odds are typically extremely accurate at the closing line because they have been receiving sharp action at high limits all week long. The people that are betting into these sharp books at such high limits are professional bettors. And throughout the course of the week, all these professional bettors have gathered so much information. They've gathered information on injuries, the weather, lineups, game plans, you name it. And all of this is more predictable right before the start of a game. Retail books have extremely low limits compared to sharp books and do not allow professional bettors or anyone with an edge to place any type of large bet on their book. Sharp books offer limits, but the limits aren't intended for individuals. The limits are intended for everyone betting into their line. On the other hand, we have retail books that limit individual bettors or anyone that poses a risk to their company. Anyone with a perceived edge could see reduced limits on retail books. This is another reason that professional bettors don't waste their time betting on retail books. If they found a true edge in the market, they would rather bet into a market they can place, $50,000 on instead of go onto a retail book and be limited down to a $100 bet. Another interesting stat you might see is a sportsbook or website put out data on the percent of money and the percent of bets coming in on a certain game. This information is only gathered by the retail books because the entire business model of a sharp book is to keep the money equal on both sides. So if a sharp book shared that type of data with the public, it would be easy to predict when a line was going to move, and it would just ruin the whole integrity of their company. The fourth big major difference is the VIG. Now VIG is just the tax that a sports book will put on their line. You often see books have lines set at -110, -110. If there was no VIG, then the line would just be +100 on both sides. But sharp books offer a very low VIG percentage, typically around 2% on main lines. These low VIG markets are also extremely desirable by professional bettors because it gives them more opportunity to make money. Sharp books can keep the VIG low because they keep the bets equal on both sides of the line and basically just collect their 2%. They really aren't taking any risk. Offering extremely low VIG markets means their lines have to be extremely accurate because there is less room for error. If they had a market that had 10% VIG, the lines wouldn't have to be that accurate to still make money. Retail books love adding a ton of VIG to their odds. Main lines are typically around 4 and 5% VIG. This gives the retail book a little bit of breathing room to not be as accurate. And then if you go and look at some of the same game parlays, you could see close to 10% VIG on some of the same game parlays for retail books. Sharp books are more accurate than retail books for many reasons. Sharp books have higher limits, lower VIG percentages, more accurate openers, and they adjust their odds based on the amount of money they receive on each side of a bet. The main thing that separates a sharp book and a retail book is their limits. One thing to note is that sharp books offer high limits on main markets like money lines, spreads, and totals on major events. One thing to note is that the limits on the sharp books change based on sport and league. So for example, a sharp book might offer a $50,000 bet on Major League Baseball game, but they might only take $1,000 bet on a minor league game. So the markets with the most liquidity can be trusted more than the lower limit markets. A smaller market can be easily influenced with a $1,000 bet or a few $1,000 bets. And on the other hand, if someone bet $1,000 into a major line, it would not affect that market at all. So you can trust the markets with more liquidity a lot more than you can trust the smaller markets. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you found it educational at all, please leave a like for this video. It keeps me motivated and keep me going. If you have any questions or anything you want to comment, obviously leave that in the comments below and I'll be sure to get back to you as quick as I can. If you want to follow me on other social media platforms, I have a Pickett account at Closing Dime. I post a lot of free plays there so you can tail my bets and we can make some money together. If you like this video, then I recommend watching this next video. I'm basically making a series of sports betting educational content for Outlier. So if you start finding this interesting, just keep clicking around and keep watching the videos. You always want to continue to educate yourself because the more you know, the more money you can make in the sports betting field. So thanks again for watching. Let's go make some money.